Hello and welcome back. Now that you're here, we can set the topic of our discussion. This time we'll be talking about the cold-blooded butcher of black sparks, Kento Nanami. I find that Nanami's talent is easy to overlook when we are shown sorcerers like Todo, Meimei, and Kusakabe directly after Nanami's introduction arc, who are all graded the same rank as Nanami and were still relevant in the current arc against Sukuna. All of those sorcerers are incredible in their own right, but I believe it's important to remember the legacy of our favorite overworked salaryman, so let's get right into it. Hot off the heels of my last statement, I'd like to bring attention to Meimei's statement from chapter 254, where she claims that despite Kusakabe's overall level being greater, Nanami and Meimei herself both wield more raw power than Kusakabe, who was able to damage Sukuna in his true form. Nanami agrees with this sentiment and claims that he isn't aware of anyone who could withstand Kusakabe's all-out attacks, and granted that Meimei and Nanami both have greater attack power, it isn't an exaggeration to say that Nanami ranks among characters who are assumed to one-shot the majority of the verse, especially when you consider his curse technique. The ratio technique makes nearly every attack that Nanami executes a fatal blow. Even Mahito, who can maintain the shape of his soul, has his arm cleanly severed in their first encounter, and Nanami is still able to bully and disrupt Mahito in their second bout. Keep in mind that the disaster curses are far above the average special grade curse, such as Tamama no Mai, the finger bearers, or the smallpox deity. Gojo says as much himself after his first encounter with Jogo, and again when they use domain amplification against him in Shibuya. Nanami's first encounter against Mahito showcases his tactical intellect and overall battle IQ, as even without significant prior knowledge, Nanami was able to decisively beat Mahito, whose technique was directly stated to be a bad matchup. On top of Mahito's status as the leader of a group of highly intelligent special grades who hopelessly outmatch all but the greatest warriors in the verse, all without the ability to meaningfully damage him. While the discussion is focused on Nanami and Mahito's first battle, I'd like to point out that Nanami was able to protect his soul with cursed energy instinctively. Mahito directly states that it isn't possible for sorcerers to be capable of doing so, and this statement is consistent when you consider that apart from Sukuna pulling Mahito into his innate domain, there isn't another example of someone reinforcing their soul in the same way that sorcerers can protect their ears from Toge's curse speech, for example. Even Kenjaku himself opts to dodge a heavily weakened and damaged Mahito rather than just protecting his soul against his technique with cursed energy reinforcement. Kenjaku has been active for at least 1700 years and still lacks Nanami's ability to defend his own soul. This showcases that Nanami has an instinctive understanding of the soul that sets him apart from the vast majority of other curse users, most likely due to his connection to the black sparks. Before Yuji had his awakening in the recent battle against Sukuna, Nanami was the top authority on black flashes. This is most likely due to his achievement of claiming the record for most consecutive black flashes. This is further evidenced by the narrative cutting to him for his opinion when Yuji lands his first black flash instead of characters like Gojo or Sukuna. Landing even one black flash unlocks a portion of your latent potential, and is what initially convinces Todo that Yuji would be a strong sorcerer. Landing a black flash allows for a wide variety of improvements to a sorcerer's overall ability, such as Yuji manifesting the shrine technique, Mahito learning the true shape of his soul, Gojo recovering his reverse cursed energy and energy output, Sukuna restoring his domain expansion, and it is very likely that Nobara's return will be due to her Black Flash if she ever does enter the final arc. Even landing a single Black Flash grants the user a level of cursed energy comprehension that is immeasurable compared to those who haven't. And Nanami lands 4 in a row, cementing himself as a master of manipulating cursed energy, which manifests in his perfect cursed energy reinforcement. Even though Nanami can use his technique with his bare hands, he instead opts to imbue his cursed energy into his cleaver, which received so much of Nanami's essence through the battles they've suffered through together, that the tool is permanently stained with Nanami's cursed technique. Similarly to how Yuji was described as a cursed object soaked in the essence of Sukuna, or even the black blades of One Piece, Keep in mind that Uraume explains that a 10-month and 10-day ritual similar to the bath is required to convert a family heirloom into a curse tool. And this ritual is so complex and esoteric that even Kenjaku wasn't aware of it. Yet Nanami is able to mimic this ritual just by his perfect weapon reinforcement. And even though he took a 4-year break from Jujutsu, it is important to note that you couldn't achieve similar results just by dumping excessive amounts of cursed energy into a tool. We see in Jujutsu Kaisen 0 that Yuta's blade was destroyed by imprecise reinforcement, and Geto mocks him, claiming that it was a rookie mistake. This means that Nanami's feat wasn't just a matter of raw power, but unprecedented talent unlocked by the Black Sparks. When you consider how Nanami's attunement to his weapon is similar to Sukuna's attunement to Yuji, when they shared souls for months on top of being so closely related to begin with, it implies the possibility that Nanami may have the single greatest cursed energy manipulation in the verse, when it comes to weapons at least. Nanami's overtime binding vow is further proof that he employs tactical usage of high-level jujutsu principles, as the vast majority of sorcerers lack the knowledge or talent to create a binding vow that provides a net positive outcome. Nanami also displayed his strategic mind when he is able to efficiently direct and lead Yuji and the sorcerers of Shibuya to keep them from harm and allocate them to the areas they'd be most useful and safe in, which is impressive when you consider the time frame and stress level of the situations. This is one of the main reasons Satoru Gojo considers Nanami to be highly reliable. A large portion of Shibuya's success can be directly attributed to Nanami's guidance. Nanami's tactical mind also extends to his character design. He wears special glasses to hide his line of sight so that no one can predict where he's targeting. Although this might not seem like an impressive feat, much like binding vows, the vast majority of sorcerers don't utilize strategies like this, so it reflects well upon Nanami by comparison. Gege clearly introduced his binding vow and glasses to set him apart from the more amateur sorcerers that the reader was familiar with at the beginning of the story. Nanami is often considered a glass cannon due to his technique's focus on raw damage. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. Nanami was so durable that Shigemo was comparing him to a brick wall. In addition, he was able to endure 30% of Dagon's domain's sure hit effect for several minutes straight. Jogo's fire, which is strong enough to kill Naobito Zenin, and even after all that damage, Nanami still gets up and continues to exercise curses in the subway until he is forced to face the final disaster curse, totaling all 3 remaining disaster curses in a row. There is barely any human characters who can endure this kind of punishment without reverse curse technique, and this paints Nanami to be just as powerful defensively as he is on the offensive. All of the previous feats discussed are recontextualized to be even more impressive when you consider that he's still rusty from his leave of absence. We see throughout the series that development in Jujutsu is so explosive and fast that Yuji went from fodder to a demon god in a few months. So taking several years off from practicing Jujutsu leaves an immeasurable amount of potential growth on the table. In conclusion, Nanami truly is one of the most underrated fan-favorite characters, as he suffers from Kakashi syndrome in Shibuya. Much like Vegeta, his role was to establish how powerful Dagon, Jogo, and Mahito were, and his own personal power lacked any narrative focus. Despite this, the Butcher wields attack power that far surpasses his level and durability that isn't far off, on top of massive amounts of strategic genius and quite possibly the most impressive reinforcement feat of the verse, painting his technique onto his trusty cleaver to leave behind as a wonderful legacy that inspires sorcerer and viewer alike. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really appreciate it when you leave feedback or suggestions in the comments below. This community has already been so helpful to me, and I am thankful to you all. But either way, I hope you stay safe and take it easy.